Calthesis had seen many species come before the Galactic Council in his 300 years of service. He had watched empires rise and fall, seen wars prevented and peace secured, but he had never seen anything quite like the humans. They walked into the grand chamber with a calmness that seemed almost inappropriate. The council had summoned them to answer for their illegal expansion into territories that belonged to older, more established civilizations. Yet Ambassador Hyun moved across the polished floor as if he were attending a casual meeting rather than facing the combined authority of 47 star systems. Behind the ambassador walked a military officer in a dark uniform. Captain Tae-sung. According to the briefing documents Calthesis had reviewed, the man said nothing, his hands clasped behind his back, his face showing no emotion whatsoever. Something about his eyes made Calthesis uncomfortable, though he could not explain why. High Arbiter Drexmal began the proceedings with his usual pompous tone. His voice echoed through the chamber, amplified by technology so ancient that most species had forgotten how to replicate it. The human delegation will explain why they have established 17 colonies in the Outer Rim, despite clear warnings from this council. Ambassador Hyun waited for the translation devices to finish their work before responding. When he spoke, his voice was measured and polite. We established those colonies because the territories were unclaimed and suitable for human habitation. We followed all protocols for colonization, as outlined in the Galactic Charter. Drexmal's face darkened. His species had bluish skin that turned almost purple when angry. The territories were unclaimed, because they are buffer zones. Every civilized species understands this. The Outer Rim separates the peaceful core systems from the unknown regions. Your colonies threaten that peace. Calthesis watched the exchange with growing fascination. He had expected the humans to show fear or at least nervousness. The Galactic Council could destroy their entire civilization with a simple vote. Economic sanctions alone would cripple Earth's still developing interstellar trade. Yet, Hyun seemed completely unworried. We understand your concerns, Hyun said. However, our colonies pose no threat to anyone. They are peaceful settlements. Farmers, scientists, families. We cannot and will not abandon them simply because you find their location inconvenient. A murmur ran through the council members. Several species began speaking at once, their translation devices creating a chaos of overlapping voices. Calthesis had to use his own device's filter function to make sense of it all. The general sentiment was clear. Shock at human defiance. Drexmal raised his hand for silence. You misunderstand your position, Ambassador. This is not a negotiation. This is a command. You will withdraw your colonies within 6 standard months, or the Council will take action. For the first time, Captain Tae-sung shifted slightly. It was a small movement, barely noticeable, but Calthesis saw it. The human military officer's eyes moved across the council members, one by one, as if measuring each of them for something. Then, he was still again. Ambassador Hyun's expression did not change. And what action would that be, High Arbiter? Economic sanctions, initially, Drexmal said. If those prove insufficient, we will request the Draxian Empire to enforce the Council's will. Their fleet is more than capable of removing your colonies by force if necessary. Now, Calthesis saw something in the humans' faces. But it was not fear. Ambassador Hyun's eyes grew sad, almost disappointed. Captain Tae-sung's jaw tightened slightly. The ambassador looked at the captain, and something passed between them. A silent communication that Calthesis could not interpret. I see, Hyun said softly. We had hoped it would not come to this. Come to what? Drexmal demanded. You have no choice in this matter. The Draxian fleet numbers over 5,000 warships. Your entire species has barely 200 vessels that could be considered military craft. You are children playing at space exploration. It is time you learned your place. Calthesis wanted to look away from the cruelty in Drexmal's words, but he forced himself to watch the humans' reactions. This was his job, as an observer and chronicler. He needed to document everything. Ambassador Hyun nodded slowly. The Draxian Empire. Yes, We are familiar with them. We have studied their history, their tactics, their culture. Impressive civilization, 3,000 years of dominance. Remarkable. Then you understand the futility of resistance, Drexmal said with satisfaction. We understand many things, High Arbiter. Hyun looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of various council members. When his gaze passed over Calthesis, the observer felt a chill run through his body. We understand that you see us as primitives. We understand that you believe we should be grateful for your guidance. We understand that you think we are weak. You are weak, a council member from the Velkari collective said. Calthesis felt shame that one of his own people would speak so bluntly. You achieved faster than light travel only 80 years ago. Most species in this council were exploring the stars when your world was still covered in ice. Hyun smiled, but there was no humor in it. Yes, we are young. That is true. But youth is not the same as weakness, and you should understand something about humanity, about Earth, about where we come from. The ambassador paused, looking at each council member in turn. We did not reach the stars because we ran out of room on our planet. We did not develop space travel because we were curious about the universe. We reached for the stars because we had already conquered everything on our own world. The oceans, the skies, the land. Every environment our planet could create, we adapted to it. Every predator that hunted us, we hunted back. Every disease that tried to kill us, we survived. We climbed to the top of our world's food chain, not because we were the strongest or the fastest. We did it because we never, ever stopped fighting. The chamber had gone silent. Even Drexmal seemed uncertain how to respond to this strange speech. So here is what will happen. Hyun continued, his voice still calm but now carrying an edge that made Calthesis's skin crawl. We will not abandon our colonies. If you impose sanctions, we will find other trading partners. If you send the Draxian fleet against us, we will respond accordingly. We came to the stars hoping to find peace, hoping to find civilizations we could learn from and grow with. But if you insist on war, then we will give you war, and you will learn something that every nation and empire on Earth learned the hard way over 10,000 years of history. And what is that? Drexmal asked, his voice barely a whisper. Captain Taesung spoke for the first time, his voice cold and clear. That humanity has 10,000 words for war in our languages, and we know how to use every single one of them. Ambassador Hyun bowed slightly. We will await your decision, High Arbiter. We hope you choose wisdom over pride. We truly do. Come, Captain. We are finished here. The two humans left the chamber with the same calm dignity they had entered with. Calthesis watched them go, his mind racing. Around him, the council members erupted into angry discussion. Drexmal was already composing a message to the Draxian Emperor, requesting immediate military intervention. But Calthesis could not shake the feeling that something terrible had just been set in motion. The humans had not seemed afraid. They had seemed prepared, as if they had expected this exact outcome, as if they had wanted it. He began reviewing his notes, already thinking about his report. The council had just made a decision. Calthesis suspected it might be the worst decision in galactic history. He thought about Captain Taesung's eyes, the way they had calculated and measured. He thought about Ambassador Hyun's sad smile. The humans had tried to warn them. Now, Calthesis feared, it was too late to listen. Calthesis had never wanted to witness a war. His entire career had been dedicated to preventing them through careful observation and honest reporting. Yet here he was, aboard a Draxian warship, assigned by the Council to document what they called a brief police action. The fleet was massive, 200 warships, each one larger than any human vessel on record. Warlord Thexaran commanded them from his flagship, a vessel so enormous it had its own internal city. The warlord had laughed when briefed about human military capabilities. He had said, "No plasma weapons. Their ships are held together with metal and hope. This will be over in hours. Calthesis had tried to express his concerns about the humans' warning at the council, but no one wanted to listen. The decision had been made. The Draxian Empire would force the human colonies to surrender, and humanity would learn to respect the council's authority. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at New Busan, the largest human colony in the Outer Rim. Calthesis looked at the planet through the viewport. It was beautiful, mostly blue oceans with 2 major continents covered in green. Sensors showed a population of nearly 2 million humans. There were cities, farms, industrial centers, a functioning civilization. There were also defense platforms in orbit, 12 of them, old and outdated by galactic standards. Their weapons would barely scratch a Draxian shield. Warlord Thexaran opened a communication channel to the planet. This is Warlord Thexaran of the Draxian Empire, acting under the authority of the Galactic Council. You have violated territorial agreements. Your colony is hereby ordered to evacuate immediately. You have 1 standard hour to begin evacuation procedures. If you refuse, we will use force. The response came quickly. A woman's face appeared on the screen. She was middle-aged by human standards, with short, dark hair and tired eyes. This is Governor Hana of New Busan. We are not evacuating. This is our home. You have no right to force us to leave. Thexaran's expression darkened. You were warned. Your government was warned. Do not force us to kill you. Governor Hana's face remained calm. You have made a terrible mistake. We tried to warn you. Tell Ambassador Hyun we are sorry we could not avoid this. The transmission ended from the human side. Thexaran stared at the empty screen for a moment, then laughed. They think they can resist? Destroy their platforms. Target their military installations. Show them the price of defiance. Calthesis watched in horror as the fleet opened fire. The human defense platforms tried to fight back. Their weapons managed to bring down the shields on 2 Draxian ships before being obliterated. Within 20 minutes, the human orbital defenses were gone. The planet lay helpless below. Begin landing operations, Thexaran ordered. Take the capital city. Once the civilians see our power, they will surrender quickly enough. 30 troop carriers descended through the atmosphere. Calthesis watched through remote cameras as thousands of Draxian soldiers landed on the outskirts of the capital. They advanced in formation, their weapons ready. Their armor gleaming in the sunlight. The city should have been evacuating. Civilians should have been fleeing. Instead, the streets were empty, silent. The first Draxian unit entered the main street. Then, the buildings exploded. Not all of them, just enough. Rubble crashed down, cutting off the unit's advance and retreat. Small arms fire erupted from windows, rooftops, alleyways. The Draxian soldiers tried to return fire, but the humans were already moving, shooting from new positions. Calthesis watched in disbelief as the pattern repeated across the city. Every street became a kill zone. Every building hid fighters. The humans were not soldiers, most of them. They were civilians, farmers, teachers, engineers. But they all fought like trained warriors. Request reinforcements, the ground commander transmitted. Enemy resistance is heavier than expected. They are using guerrilla tactics. We cannot advance without heavy casualties. Thexaran sent more troops. 5,000 became 10,000. 10,000 became 20. The city turned into a meat grinder. The Draxians had better weapons, better armor, better training. But the humans had something else. They had the desperation of people fighting for their homes. And they had absolutely no intention of surrendering. Major Dae-hyun led the human defense forces. Calthesis learned his name from intercepted communications. The major should have been overwhelmed within hours. His forces numbered less than 500 trained soldiers, with perhaps 2,000 armed civilians supporting them. Against 20,000 Draxian troops, they should have been annihilated. Instead, the battle dragged on for days. The humans used tactics that Cal Thesis had only read about in ancient military histories. They booby-trapped buildings. They attacked supply lines. They used the sewers to move unseen. They fought from positions that gave them advantage, then melted away before the Draxians could respond. Most terrifying of all, they accepted casualties that would have broken any other species. Entire units were wiped out, and the survivors simply reformed and continued fighting. Cal Thesis watched through cameras as a human civilian, wounded and bleeding, used his last grenade to destroy a Draxian supply depot. The human died in the explosion. His sacrifice allowed other fighters to capture the weapons stored there. On the fifth day, Cal Thesis accompanied a Draxian squad into what remained of a residential district. They found a human fighter trapped in a collapsed building. The woman was badly injured, her leg crushed under rubble. She still aimed her weapon at them. "Why do you not surrender?" the Draxian squad leader asked through his translator. "We can destroy this entire city from space." The woman smiled through her pain. "Then destroy it. But we will not surrender our homes. We will not leave. And every day you stay here, more of you die. Every street costs you blood. Every building costs you time. And time is not on your side." "What do you mean?" the Draxian demanded. "They are coming," the woman said. "Our people are coming. And when they arrive, you will understand why you should have listened to Ambassador Hyun." The Draxian squad leader stunned her into unconsciousness and moved on. But her words stayed with Cal Thesis. Who was coming? Earth was weeks away, even at maximum, faster than light speed. The other human colonies were too small to field significant military forces. On the seventh day, the Draxian fleet in orbit detected something. Multiple hyperspace signatures. Approaching fast. Very fast. Warlord Thexaran pulled his forces back from the city, recalling all troops to the landing zones for immediate evacuation. "Prepare for engagement," he ordered. "Unknown vessels are entering the system." Cal Thesis rushed to the observation deck. Through the viewports, he saw space tear open as ships emerged from hyperspace. Human ships. Hundreds of them. They were larger than anything on record, their hulls dark and angular, bristling with weapons that seemed to cover every surface. "Impossible," Thexaran whispered. A transmission came through on all channels. A human face appeared. Male, older, with gray hair and cold eyes. "This is Fleet Admiral Jin Woo of the United Nations First Strike Fleet. You have attacked our colony. You have killed our people. You were warned. Now you will face the consequences." The human fleet opened fire before Thexaran could even respond. Their weapons were not the primitive projectiles intelligence reports had described. They used energy weapons. Railguns that fired projectiles at relativistic speeds. Missiles that could think and adapt. The Draxian shields, designed to withstand conventional weapons, overloaded in seconds. Ships began dying. Not damaged, not disabled. Dead. Explosions lit up the darkness as Draxian warships were torn apart. Thexaran screamed orders, trying to organize a defense, but the human fleet moved with precision that spoke of careful planning and ruthless efficiency. "Retreat," Thexaran finally ordered. "All ships, emergency jump to rally point 7. The surviving Draxian ships began powering up their hyperspace drives. The humans let them go. They did not pursue. They simply stopped firing and formed a defensive sphere around New Busan. Cal Thesis checked the casualty reports as the Draxian flagship jumped away. Of the 200 warships that had entered the system, only 78 escaped. 122 ships destroyed. 30,000 Draxian soldiers dead on the planet's surface, with another 8,000 captured. Thanks for watching. I my work subscribe Shauner. The battle had lasted less than 40 minutes once the human fleet arrived. Governor Haina's transmission to the fleet was broadcast on open channels. "Welcome home, Admiral. "Thank you for the rescue." Fleet Admiral Jinwoo's response was simple. "We told them. Now they know. Prepare for refugees. The Council's colonies in this sector will need evacuation before the war expands." Calthesis felt ice in his veins. The war expands. This was not the end. This was the beginning. The humans had not sent their fleet to rescue one colony. They had sent it as a message, as a declaration. As he watched the human warships patrol the orbit of New Busan, Calthesis finally understood what he had seen in Captain Taesung's eyes at the council meeting. Not fear. Not even anger. Anticipation. The humans had been waiting for this, preparing for it. And now that it had begun, they were ready in ways the galaxy could not imagine. Calthesis barely made it off the Draxian flagship before everything changed. He caught a transport to the nearest neutral station, his credentials as a council observer protecting him from the chaos erupting across the sector. From his small quarters on the station, he watched as the galaxy learned what war with humanity meant. The first shock came within days. The human fleet that had rescued New Busan was not their entire military. It was one of 7 such fleets. 7. Each one containing hundreds of warships that had somehow been built in secret over the past 8 decades. The humans had not just been colonizing, they had been constructing shipyards, training crews, developing weapons, all while maintaining the appearance of a minor, barely relevant civilization. Calthesis spent hours reviewing the intelligence reports that flooded through council channels. The numbers seemed impossible. Earth's industrial capacity had been measured at roughly 12% of the Draxian empires. Yet they were producing warships at a rate that suggested an economy twice that size. How? The answer came from a human information broadcast, one of many they were now sending to neutral species throughout the galaxy. A woman named Sora, wearing the uniform of a ship captain, explained it in simple terms that made Calthesis's blood run cold. "We learned long ago on Earth that industrial capacity during peacetime means nothing during war. What matters is how quickly you can convert civilian production to military production. Every human factory, every shipyard, every manufacturing center was designed from the start with dual purposes. We built colony ships that could be converted to carriers. We built cargo haulers that could become troop transports. We built mining equipment that could be retooled to make weapons. You thought we were building a civilization. We were building an arsenal." The Draxian Empire refused to accept defeat. Emperor Kraxthul mobilized the entire empire for war. 5,000 warships, drawn from every corner of their territory, assembled to crush the human threat, once and for all. They outnumbered the human fleets by nearly 3 to 1. Fleet Admiral Jinwoo's response was broadcast on every frequency. "We do not want this war. We never wanted it. But if you insist on continuing, we will show you why Earth's history is written in blood and fire. Turn back now, or learn the lessons our own ancestors learned. At terrible cost." The Draxian fleet attacked human colonies in the Outer Rim, expecting easy victories. They found death instead. The humans had fortified every world. Orbital platforms that seemed outdated suddenly revealed hidden weapons. Civilian ships transformed into missile boats. Even the colonists themselves fought with ferocity that defied logic. But the true horror began when the human fleets went on the offensive. They did not just defend their territory, they attacked. Calthesis watched from his distant sanctuary as human warships appeared in Draxian border systems. They did not follow the traditional rules of engagement. They did not issue warnings or demands for surrender. They simply destroyed every military target they could find, then left. Fast strikes, overwhelming force, no mercy for those who resisted. Commander Sora led one of these raids. Her ship, the UNS Indomitable, struck a Draxian supply depot in the Kelmar system. The battle was recorded by automated sensors and later reviewed by council observers. The human ship came out of hyperspace already firing. Its weapons targeted not just military vessels but also the infrastructure that supported them. fuel depots, repair facilities, communications, arrays. Within 30 minutes, the system's ability to support military operations was destroyed. The Indomitable then jumped away before reinforcements could arrive. Before leaving, Commander Sora transmitted a message to the system's inhabitants. "Surrender now, or you will understand why old Earth had 10,000 words for war." That phrase became the signature of every human attack. 10,000 words for war. Calthesis researched human language databases, trying to understand what it meant. What he found horrified him. The humans were not exaggerating. Their languages contained countless words specifically for warfare. Words for different types of combat, different weapons, different strategies. They had words for the psychological states of soldiers, for the economics of war production, for the ethics of killing. They had developed an entire vocabulary around organized violence because they had been practicing it for their entire history. Every human culture, every nation, every era of their development had been shaped by conflict. They had fought over resources, territory, religion, ideology, pride. They had developed weapons to kill each other more efficiently, then developed defenses against those weapons, then developed better weapons to overcome those defenses. It was an endless cycle that had lasted for thousands of years, and now they had brought that experience to the stars. The Draxian Empire tried to match human tactics. They attempted fast raids on human supply lines. They tried to strike at civilian targets to break human morale. Every attempt failed or backfired terribly. When Draxian ships raided a human logistics station, they found it defended by automated weapon systems that had been hidden inside asteroids. The systems activated and destroyed the entire raiding force before it could escape. When Draxian commanders ordered strikes against human civilian targets, thinking it would weaken resolve, they instead triggered something worse. The human military response became even more aggressive. Admiral Jinwu's message after that incident was brief and cold. "You targeted civilians. That was a mistake. We tried to keep this war focused on military targets. You have changed the rules. We will adapt accordingly." The next human offensive targeted Draxian industrial centers, not just military facilities, but the factories and shipyards that supported them. The humans did give warnings this time, broadcasting evacuation notices hours before attacks. But when they struck with overwhelming force. Entire manufacturing complexes were reduced to rubble. Calthesis realized he was witnessing something the galaxy had not seen in millennia. Total war. Not war for territory or resources or honor. War for survival. War where everything and everyone was committed to victory. He began compiling his observations into reports for the Council, though he doubted anyone would listen. The Council had created this situation through arrogance and stupidity. Now they watched helplessly as two civilizations tore at each other. What disturbed Calthesis most was not the human capacity for violence. It was their efficiency at it. They did not fight with rage or hatred. They fought with cold calculation. Every attack was planned. Every resource was used optimally. They wasted nothing, not even their enemies' mistakes. When a Draxian commander made a tactical error, exposing his fleet's supply lines, human forces struck within hours. They did not gloat or celebrate. They simply exploited the weakness and moved on to the next target. 6 months into the war, the Draxian Empire was losing. Not slowly, not gradually. They were being systematically dismantled. Their border territories had fallen. Their trade routes were cut. Their allies were abandoning them. Terrified of drawing human attention, Emperor Kraxthul called for peace negotiations. The humans agreed immediately. Their terms were simple: complete withdrawal from all disputed territories, reparations for damages, and recognition of human sovereignty over their claimed space. The Emperor refused, calling the terms humiliating. He vowed to fight to the last Draxian rather than submit to human demands. Admiral Jinwu's response was equally simple. Then you will fight to the last. We offered mercy. We offered peace. You chose pride. Very well. We will show you what humanity is capable of when we stop holding back. Calthesis did not understand what that meant. The humans had not been holding back? Everything he had witnessed, all the destruction and death, had been humanity being restrained? The answer came 2 weeks later, when human fleets began the final push toward the Draxian homeworld. They did not rush. They did not take risks. They simply advanced, system by system, destroying everything military in their path. It was methodical, relentless, unstoppable. And Calthesis finally understood the true terror of humanity. They were not driven by emotion. They were not cruel or sadistic. They simply understood war at a level no other species could match. They had been fighting each other for so long that warfare was woven into their very nature. They did not enjoy it. That somehow made it worse. They fought the way other species breathed. Naturally. Efficiently. Without question or hesitation. The galaxy was learning a lesson it should have learned months ago, when Ambassador Hyun tried to warn them. Humanity was not weak. They were patient. And now, that patience had run out. Calthesis requested permission to travel to human territory. He needed to understand them better. He needed to document what he was witnessing before it was too late. The council approved, perhaps hoping he could find some way to end the war before it consumed everything. He sent a message to Fleet Admiral Jin Woo, requesting asylum and safe passage. The response came quickly. Permission granted. Observer Calthesis. We welcome your presence. Perhaps you can help others understand what we tried to tell them from the beginning. Come. See what humanity really is. Calthesis boarded a neutral transport, heading toward human space. He was afraid of what he would find there. But he knew he had to understand. The galaxy's future might depend on it. The human ship that picked up Calthesis at the neutral border station was smaller than he expected. Not a warship, but a diplomatic courier. The crew was professional and courteous. They treated him with respect, even kindness. It made the contrast with what he had witnessed even more disturbing. A young officer named Unji was assigned as his escort. She could not have been more than 25 Earth years old. Young, even by human standards. She wore her uniform with pride and greeted him with a genuine smile. Welcome aboard, Observer Calthesis. I hope your journey here was comfortable. I am Lieutenant Yunji. I will be your guide during your stay with us. Calthesis studied her carefully. She seemed so normal, pleasant, even cheerful. Nothing about her suggested someone who had lived through months of brutal warfare. Thank you, Lieutenant. I appreciate your hospitality. Of course, Fleet Admiral Jin Woo asked me to take good care of you. He is looking forward to speaking with you personally. But first, there is someone else who would like to meet you. Dr. Sang-min, one of our historians. He has been studying your reports about the war and has some insights to share. The ship jumped to hyperspace, heading deeper into human territory. Calthesis spent the journey observing the crew. They worked efficiently, almost casually. There was no tension, no fear. They joked with each other during breaks. They talked about their families, their homes, their plans for after the war ended. It was the normality that disturbed him most. These people were part of a civilization engaged in total war. Yet they acted as if warfare was just another aspect of life. Not something extraordinary, not something traumatic, just normal. When they arrived at the command station, Calthesis was taken to meet Dr. Sang-min. The historian was older, perhaps 60, with gray streaking through his dark hair. His office was filled with books and digital displays, showing maps, charts, and historical records. Observer Calthesis, Sang-min greeted him warmly. Thank you for coming. I have read your reports with great interest. You ask the right questions. Why are humans so effective at warfare? Why do we not break under pressure? Why do we seem to understand war better than species that have existed for thousands of years longer? Calthesis sat down slowly. Yes. Those are my questions. I have watched your fleets dismantle an empire that ruled for 3 millennia. I have watched your people fight with effectiveness that seems impossible. I need to understand why. Sang-min smiled sadly. The answer is simpler than you might think. Let me tell you about Earth, our homeworld. Every species in the galaxy evolved on a world with challenges: predators, weather, disease. But Earth was different. He pulled up images on his display. Calthesis saw a beautiful blue world. But as Sang-min zoomed in, the reality became clear. Massive storms that could destroy entire cities. Earthquakes that could shatter continents. Volcanoes that could change global climate. Oceans filled with creatures larger and more dangerous than most starships. We call it a death world. Sang-min continued. Life on Earth was a constant struggle for survival. Every day, something tried to kill our ancestors. The weather, the animals, the diseases, other humans. We evolved not just to survive, but to overcome. We developed tools, not because we were curious, but because we needed them to stay alive. Calthesis looked at the images with growing horror. Your people evolved on this? We did. And it shaped everything about us. Other species developed space travel, to explore, to find resources, to satisfy curiosity. We developed it to escape, but we brought our survival instincts with us. Let me show you something. Sang-min pulled up historical records from Earth. Wars. Thousands of them. Conflicts that lasted decades, even centuries. Weapons that could destroy entire cities. Tactics that prioritized survival over honor or mercy. Every nation on Earth learned the same lessons over and over. The one who adapts fastest wins. The one who uses resources most efficiently wins. The one who never gives up wins. We fought each other for 10,000 years. We became very, very good at it. But your people seem so peaceful. Calthesis protested. Lieutenant Yunji treats me with kindness. The crew jokes and laughs. Where is the violence? Lon, we are peaceful, Sang-min said, because we choose to be. That is the key you are missing, observer. We understand violence. We know its costs. We have lived it. That knowledge makes us value peace even more. But when peace fails, we do not hesitate. We remember how to fight, because forgetting would be foolish. On Earth, the nations that forgot how to defend themselves were conquered by those who remembered. Lieutenant Yunji entered the office carrying refreshments. She set them down with a smile. I hope I am not interrupting. Not at all, Sang-min said. Lieutenant. Observer Calthesis was just expressing surprise at how normal you seem despite the war. Yunji laughed. Oh, yes. I suppose it might seem strange. This is my second deployment. Actually, I served on the Colony Defense Forces at New Busan before transferring to diplomatic services. Calthesis stared at her. You were at New Busan? During the Draxian attack? Yes, sir. I was part of Major Dae-hyun's unit. We held the Eastern District for 6 days before the fleet arrived. She said it casually, as if describing a routine assignment. But you are so young. How can you speak of such things so calmly? Yunji's smile faded slightly. Because it is what we do, observer. We are taught from childhood that the universe is dangerous, that safety is temporary, that we must be ready to defend what we love. It is not that we enjoy fighting. It is that we understand. It is sometimes necessary. After she left, Calthesis turned back to Sang-min. She is 25 years old. She has already fought in 2 combat deployments and speaks of it like it is normal career progression. For humans, it is, Sang-min said quietly. Remember, we spent our entire history fighting. Even in peacetime, we train. We prepare. Not because we want war, but because we want to survive the next one. Every human learns basic survival skills. Many learn combat skills. It is part of our culture. Over the following days, Calthesis met with other humans and toured their facilities. He saw shipyards, where civilian workers seamlessly transitioned between building cargo vessels and warships. He watched training simulations where young humans learned tactics that had been refined over centuries of warfare. He observed command centers where officers planned operations with cold efficiency, but he also saw families. Children playing, artists creating, scientists researching. The humans lived full lives even in the middle of war. They had not become monsters. They had simply accepted that warfare was part of existence and adapted accordingly. Fleet Admiral Jin Woo finally met with him on the flagship of the First Strike Fleet. The admiral was planning the final assault on the Draxian homeworld. The battle plans covered multiple scenarios, contingencies for every possible response. It was military planning at a level Calthesis had never witnessed. "You wanted to understand us," Jinwoo said without preamble. "What have you learned?" Calthesis gathered his thoughts carefully. "I have learned that humanity is fundamentally different from other species. You evolved in conditions that forced you to become warriors. You carry that legacy in everything you do." "True," Jinwoo acknowledged. "But incomplete. Yes, we are shaped by our violent past. But that is not all we are. Look at this." He pulled up a display showing Earth. "This is our homeworld, the place that tried to kill us for millions of years. We could have abandoned it when we reached the stars, started fresh on easier worlds. But we did not. We stayed. We fixed the damage we had done to it. We made it beautiful again. Because we also learned to love, to create, to preserve." "Then why are you so effective at destroying?" Jin Woo's expression hardened. "Because we understand the cost. Every human knows someone who died in Earth's wars. Every nation on our planet has memorials to their dead. We count our casualties in millions, in tens of millions. We know what war means. So when we fight to end it as quickly as possible. We do not drag it out for honor or pride. We win, then we make peace, then we rebuild." He gestured to the battle plans. The Draxian Empire could have avoided all of this. Ambassador Hyun tried to warn them. We offered peaceful coexistence. They chose violence. Now we will end this war the only way they left available to us. Quickly, decisively, and then we will offer them peace again. Real peace. Because we do not want enemies. We want neighbors. End quote. End quote. Well TV. End quote. Will the Draxians accept peace after losing so much? They will. Because they will finally understand what we tried to tell them from the beginning. That humanity values peace because we know the alternative. That we are willing to fight because we have no choice. That we will win because we have been preparing for this since we first looked at the stars and wondered what threats might wait there. Calthesis spent another week with the human fleet. He watched as they prepared for the final assault. He saw the care they took to minimize civilian casualties. He saw them offer surrender terms again and again, even as the Draxians rejected them. He finally understood. Humanity was not cruel. They were not monsters. They were survivors who had learned terrible lessons and hoped never to teach them to others. But when forced, they would show the galaxy what those lessons meant. The assault on the Draxian homeworld would begin in days. Calthesis requested permission to return to the Galactic Council to deliver his report. Jin Woo approved immediately. "Go," the Admiral said. "Tell them what you have learned. Tell them that humanity wants peace, but also tell them that if they force us to war again, we will be ready. We are always ready. It is what we do." As Calthesis's transport jumped back toward Council space, he began composing his report. The galaxy needed to understand what he had learned. Humanity was not the threat. Human capacity for violence was matched by their capacity for restraint. The real threat was forcing them to choose violence when they desperately wanted peace. He hoped the Council would listen, but he feared it might already be too late. The Galactic Council chamber looked the same as it had 1 year ago when Ambassador Hyun first stood before them. The same polished floors, the same ancient technology, the same seats arranged in a circle of judgment, but everything else had changed. Calthesis stood in his place as an observer, preparing to present his final report. Around him sat representatives of 47 civilizations, all waiting to witness the end of the war that had shattered their assumptions about the universe. In the center of the chamber, in a position that would have been unthinkable a year ago, sat Emperor Krax Thul of the Draxian Empire. The emperor looked broken. His people had ruled for 3,000 years, had commanded fleets of 5,000 warships, had been one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. Now he sat waiting to sign surrender terms to a species that had barely existed on the galactic stage. High Arbiter Drexmal called the session to order. His voice lacked its usual pompous tone. He too had been changed by the war, by watching his certainties crumble. This council convenes to formalize the end of hostilities between the Draxian Empire and humanity. Observer Calthesis will first present his findings. Calthesis stood, his hands trembling slightly. He had spent the journey back, writing and rewriting his report. How could he make them understand? How could he explain what he had witnessed without sounding insane? Honored council members, he began. 1 year ago, I stood in this chamber and watched humanity warn us. We did not listen. We thought we understood the universe. We thought we knew what strength meant. We were wrong about everything. ADA. He activated his display, showing images from the war. Destroyed Draxian fleets. Captured territory. The relentless advance of human forces toward the Draxian homeworld. The Draxian Empire lost 70% of its military capacity in this war. Over 200,000 soldiers dead. 15 major worlds occupied. Their homeworld was under blockade when they finally requested peace terms. Murmurs ran through the council. The numbers were staggering. The Draxian Empire had been thought unstoppable by conventional means. But these numbers do not tell the real story. Calthesis continued. The real story is why humanity won so decisively. And more importantly, why they chose to stop when they could have destroyed the Draxian Empire completely. He changed the display to show images from his time with the human fleet. Lieutenant Eunji, smiling as she explained her combat experience. Dr. Sang Min, teaching about Earth's violent history. Fleet Admiral Jinwoo, planning operations with cold precision. I have spent the past months trying to understand humanity. I have spoken with their soldiers, their scholars, their leaders. I have reviewed their history, studied their culture, examined their methods, and I have reached a conclusion that will seem impossible to many of you. Calthesis paused, looking around the chamber. Every eye was on him. Humanity is the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because they are cruel, not because they are powerful, but because they have been preparing for war since they first looked at the stars. Explain, Drexmal commanded. Humanity evolved on what they call a death world. A planet where everything tried to kill them. They survived not by being the strongest or fastest, but by being the most adaptable. They learned to make tools, to work together, to plan for threats before those threats appeared. And when they had conquered their world, they began fighting each other. For 10,000 years, they refined the art of warfare through constant practice. He pulled up the image of Earth. Every nation on this world has fought wars. Every culture has developed weapons. Every generation has learned lessons written in blood. They have words in their languages specifically for warfare that we do not have equivalents for. They understand violence at a level we cannot match because they have lived it for their entire history. A council member from the Telvari Federation spoke up, but they seemed so peaceful during diplomatic contacts. They followed protocols. They negotiated in good faith. Because they wanted peace, Calthesis said. That is what I am trying to make you understand. Humanity values peace, precisely because they know the cost of war. They have counted their dead in millions. They have destroyed their own cities. They have nearly wiped themselves out multiple times. So when they reached the stars, they desperately wanted to avoid repeating those mistakes. He changed the display to show Ambassador Hyun's warning from 1 year ago. They tried to tell us. Ambassador Hyun stood in this very chamber and warned us. He explained that humanity has 10,000 words for war. He begged us to choose wisdom over pride. We did not listen. The chamber fell silent. Calthesis continued, his voice growing stronger. The Draxian Empire attacked New Busan, thinking they were teaching a lesson to primitives. Instead, they triggered a response from a species that had been building a military force in secret for 80 years. A species that had designed their entire civilization to be able to convert from peace to war in weeks. A species that understands logistics, strategy, and tactics better than civilizations that have existed for millennia. Emperor Kraxthal spoke for the first time, his voice hollow. They destroyed us in 1 year. 3,000 years of dominance ended in 12 months. Because you gave them no choice, Calthesis said, not unkindly. Humanity tried diplomacy. They offered compromises. They explained their position. Only when faced with violence did they respond with violence. And when they did, they fought with the full weight of their history behind them. The chamber doors opened. Ambassador Hyun entered, followed by Captain Tae-sung. They walked to the center of the chamber with the same calm dignity they had shown a year ago. But now, no one dared speak to them with disrespect. Hyun stood before the council. Honored members, we are here to finalize peace terms with the Draxian Empire and to address our relationship with this council. Drexmal gestured for him to continue. The High Arbiter's earlier arrogance was completely gone. First, the terms for the Draxian Empire. All human colonies are recognized as sovereign human territory. The Empire will pay reparations for damages caused during their attack on New Busan. In exchange, we will withdraw our forces from occupied Draxian worlds and release all prisoners. Trade relations will be restored within 5 years. We will offer technical and economic assistance to help rebuild what the war destroyed. Emperor Kraxthul looked up in shock. You would help us rebuild? After we tried to destroy you? Hyun's expression softened. We do not want enemies, Emperor. We want neighbors. You made a mistake. You have paid for it. Now we move forward. That is how humanity survives. We fight when we must, then we make peace, then we rebuild. Together. The Emperor signed the treaty with shaking hands. Calthesis watched the moment with something approaching awe. The humans could have demanded so much more. They could have destroyed the Draxian Empire. Instead, they offered mercy and assistance. Hyun then turned to address the full council. As for our relationship with this council, humanity requests full recognition as an independent power, with all associated rights and responsibilities. We wish to join this council, not as petitioners, but as equals. Granted, Drexmal said immediately. Several council members nodded agreement. No one dared object. We also request that the Outer Rim territories be recognized as a human sphere of influence. Not exclusive control, but primary responsibility for security and development. We will share resources and coordinate with council members, but those colonies are ours to protect. Again, the council agreed without debate. They had learned what happened when humanity's colonies were threatened. Hyun bowed slightly. Thank you. Humanity looks forward to working with all of you to build a peaceful and prosperous galaxy. We have no desire for conquest or domination. We simply want to live in security and dignity. If the Council respects that, we will be your strongest allies. If anyone threatens that, they will face what the Draxian Empire faced. He paused, letting the words sink in. We tried to warn you 1 year ago. We told you that humanity has been preparing for war since we first reached for the stars. We told you that we have 10,000 words for war in our languages. You did not listen. We hope you are listening now. Captain Tae-sung spoke for only the second time Calthesis had heard. The universe is dangerous. We know this better than anyone. We have fought the dangers of our own world for millions of years. We have fought each other for thousands of years. Now we stand ready to fight whatever threats emerge in the galaxy. Not because we want to, because we know how. And because sometimes, fighting is the only way to survive. The council session ended with formal recognition of humanity's new status. As the chamber emptied, Calthesis approached Ambassador Hyun. "May I speak with you?" Or one. "Of course, observer. Your report was excellent. You understood what we tried to explain from the beginning. I wanted to ask," Calthesis said carefully, "could you have destroyed the Draxian Empire completely?" Hyun and Tae-sung exchanged glances. The captain nodded slightly. The ambassador turned back to Calthesis. "Yes, we had the capacity and, by Earth's historical standards, the justification. They attacked us without provocation. They targeted civilians. By the rules of warfare that humanity developed over thousands of years, we could have responded with total war. Why did you not? Because we are trying to be better than our history," Hyun said quietly. "Earth's past is filled with atrocities, committed in the name of survival or revenge. We learned terrible lessons. We paid for them with oceans of blood. When we reached the stars, we promised ourselves we would not repeat those mistakes. We would fight only when necessary. We would show mercy when possible. We would seek peace, even with enemies." He looked around the empty chamber. "That is the message we tried to send with this war. Yes, we can fight. Yes, we will win. But we would rather not fight at all. We value life. We value peace. We just refuse to purchase peace through weakness. We will defend ourselves and our people with everything we have. But once the threat ends, we stop. We rebuild. We move forward." Calthesis spent the next weeks writing his final report. He titled it simply, "Why the Stars Should Fear Humanity." But the content was more nuanced than the title suggested. "I have witnessed humanity march to war," he wrote. "I have seen them destroy an empire that ruled for 3,000 years. I have watched them fight with effectiveness that seems impossible. And now, I know why even the stars should fear them. Not because they are cruel, though they can be when necessary. Not because they are powerful, though they are more powerful than any of us imagined. They should be feared because they have been preparing for war since the first human ancestor looked at the stars and wondered what threats might lurk there. They fear the dark because they know what lives in it. They have been the thing in the dark before, on their own world, fighting each other. And if pushed, if threatened, if given no choice, they will be that thing again. They will fight with every lesson learned from 10,000 years of warfare. They will adapt faster than you can respond. They will never surrender. They will never stop. But here is what the galaxy must understand. Humanity does not want to be feared. They want to be neighbors. They want peace. They want cooperation. They tried to tell us this from the beginning. We forced them to war through arrogance and stupidity. They responded with devastating effectiveness, then immediately offered peace and assistance. The greatest danger is not humanity's capacity for violence. It is forcing them to use it. Because once awakened, the human war machine is terrifyingly efficient. We saw it with the Draxian Empire. We must never forget this lesson. Humanity should be treated with respect. Their colonies should be left in peace. Their sovereignty should be recognized. Not because we fear them, though perhaps we should, but because they have earned it. They came to the stars hoping to find friends. Let us be the friends they hoped for, not the enemies they prepared for. Calthesis submitted his report to the council archives. It would be required reading for all diplomats, all military officers, all leaders who might one day interact with humanity. In his private quarters, he added one final note to his personal journal. Today, I watched Captain Tae-sung as the treaty was signed. He caught my eye and nodded slightly. In that moment, I understood. The humans had expected this outcome from the beginning. They knew the Council would force them to demonstrate their strength. They had prepared for it. They had planned for it. And when it came, they were ready. We saw humanity march to war. We saw them win decisively. And now, we see them offer peace. But we must never forget what we witnessed. Never forget that beneath their civility, their kindness, their desire for peace, lies a species that has been fighting since they first stood upright on their death world. They are the survivors of 1,000,000 years of evolution in hell. They are the inheritors of 10,000 years of warfare. They are humanity, and the stars should indeed fear them, not because they will attack, but because if attacked, they will never, ever lose. Calthesis closed his journal and looked out at the stars. Somewhere, out there, human ships patrolled their colonies. Human families built new homes. Human children played under alien suns. They looked peaceful. They looked ordinary. But Calthesis knew the truth. The galaxy had been fundamentally changed. A new power had emerged. A power that wanted peace, but was prepared for war. A power that would defend what it loved with terrible effectiveness. A power that had tried to warn everyone before demonstrating what they could do. The question now was whether the galaxy would learn the lesson. Would they respect humanity's boundaries? Would they accept them as equals? Or would another empire, another civilization, make the same mistake the Draxians made? Calthesis hoped they would learn. Because he had seen what happened when humanity marched to war, and he knew the galaxy could not survive if they had to learn that lesson again. The stars should fear humanity. But more than that, they should respect them, should work with them, should treat them as the valuable allies and neighbors they wanted to be, because the alternative was unthinkable.